Well, good evening, and well done for being here. I mean, it's been a long day and not an easy one. I certainly have learned a lot. So thank you very much for this fantastic opportunity, great invitation. I owe the Institute some more extra hours of work on these topics. I have a couple of things to tell you before we actually get into the good news. Philosophers normally do not bring good news, so please remark the unusual approach here. But a couple of things. One is, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about ethics? Well, the thing is that people say, oh, we're doing the right thing, but then you have someone in the room says, well, that's the law. Those are the regulations. That's what we have. Plenty of companies says, that's enough. No, it isn't. First analogy, playing football. You have to play according to the rules, of course. That's called compliance. Winning, that's another story. And winning means playing ethics, having a strategy to be better than anyone else who also, hopefully, is playing according to the rules. The second analogy I want to introduce so that it will stay with you is actually a bit more biographical. I'm Italian by origins and passport, now British because I saw it coming. Thank you, Theresa May. Despite that, there's something that stays with you, how you cook pasta. And to your British colleague, you had to tell them that you put the salt before, when you boil the water. What has got to do with ethics? Everything. The ethics is a pinch of salt at the beginning, not bags afterwards. Once you have made all the mess, you forgot the salt and you try to patch up. Now, any reference to any company that might have been receiving sort of fines from the European Commission is totally accidental. You do this in anticipation of problems. A pinch of salt at the beginning. Don't eat too much salt. Too much ethics, no, can cause damages. But a pinch of ethics at the beginning, that's exactly what we need. So now, for the good news. Socially good AI, supporting the Sustainable Development Goals. What exactly are we talking about here? Treat AI for a moment as an enormous reservoir or smart agency, almost something you can throw at problems. Now, if you do that, this is not a challenge. It won't be. Robocop is not coming, Terminator is not coming. That's not the issue at all. The issue is rather, how can we make sure that we do the right thing? Now, this is from the current document that we are discussing. You've seen the first draft. I'm a member of the high-level group on the ethics of AI at the European Commission. The first draft is circulated, and we need to have AI to enable human self-realization, to enhance human agency, to increase societal capabilities, and to cultivate societal cohesion. Someone would remark, thank you so much. That's obvious. Less obvious is what happens when you don't do that. Well, that is exactly what happens when you overuse or misuse AI. But I want to concentrate on something slightly different. You can read devaluing human skills, removing human responsibility, reducing human control, and eroding human self-determination. These are all problems that we are going to encounter if we don't put that pinch of salt at the beginning. But above all, don't forget to put the pinch of salt there. The underuse of AI is also a problem. For the economists here, is an opportunity cost, and it's growing. It's growing because we don't have a map. You don't know where you're going, and therefore, better safe than sorry becomes the rule. Precautionary principle dominates the agenda. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. Let's see what happens. Now, along that line, the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, there we know exactly what we like. There are 17, I'll tell you more in a moment, but you can read that they go from no poverty all the way down to peace, justice, and strong institutions. Zero hunger, good health and well-being, education. The list is heartwarming and frustrating. How wonderful would it be to solve all this in one go? Can we? Well, this has been agreed by the UN. So for the skeptical in the room, just in case, oh, but ethics here, ethics there, everyone has his own. Not here. We agreed at the UN level that this is good stuff, that we want to deliver it as a planet. So please, all that relativism, my ethics, your ethics, well, at least not for today, not on these 17 goals. The 17, they are, according to the description, integrated, indivisible, and incorporate the 3 dimensions of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental. The disappointing news is that figure, 2030. Someone must be really optimistic here. No, 17 goals of that measure. If I could subscribe to solving 1 by 2030, I'd be already happy. 17, that looks like a PhD student who doesn't quite know how long it's going to take to write their thesis. Those problems are going to stay with us for a long time, well past 2030. But there's something we can do about them. We can use that reservoir of agency. Now here, another metaphor I hope is going to be useful for the rest of the day, or maybe when you go home. The green and the blue. If there is one recipe for our century to get out of the stinky hole in which we put ourselves recently, is by putting the green of environmental policies and economy with the blue of digital technologies. It doesn't take a genius. We're not doing it. But the green and the blue have to come together. They are allies for a better world and a better society. So here, AI for SDGs becomes quite obvious. How is AI already being used, however, out there? Are we really have something there? Can we do better? Well, here's the good news. We, with my research group, and thanks to some big companies, some companies that run a large social platform and a very large search engine, funded a piece of research before the summer. We went around and checked, is there anyone out there already using AI in support of the Sustainable Development Goals? We checked for real AI, so that it wasn't just a sprinkle on top of my research, that would address 1 or more of those SDGs that had already been in place for at least 6 months. So not something like, oh, I wish I could. It's a pilot project, a blueprint, something real out there. And that had a real impact. Somewhere there was evidence that had made a positive difference. And finally, that there was no oops on the other hand. We saved the the fish, but we killed the whale. That there was no counter negative impact. And what we found out, and I'll show you in a moment in a graph, that every SDG is already being addressed by at least one project out there. So as we speak, there's someone out there who is already using AI for social good to support the UN development goals. That's good news. That there's a high degree of variation around which ones are being subscribed. And that requires more research. And there's an increasingly global phenomenon. People all over the place, in all continents. This is what it looks like. Now, this was presented, I presented this at a side event in New York during the UN Assembly, and I have to say, maybe because it was such a gloomy meeting, but everybody was so happy. There's finally some good news. Someone somewhere is doing the right thing. You don't have to start talking about Robocop or stealing jobs or how humanity is going from bad to worse. There is an enormous reservoir of goodwill and skills out there, untapped, that meanwhile is doing its daily job properly. That's why we can still enjoy a planet as we know it. So thank you for all those workers. And you can see, however, that it's unevenly distributed. Some are more subscribed, some others are much less. Why? What looks like success? Why some things are not quite working as well as we would expect? They are all over the place, but mostly you can tell where they come from. The blue shows you that just because there was a touch little blue over there in South America, the whole South American continent was saved by not being part of the trend. But that doesn't really count for much. But China, India, Australia, United States, Europe, bits of Africa, this is where the projects on ground, grassroots, are being developed. So it's just the beginning of the iceberg. It was not a systematic review. We did not mean to have a full database. We just sampled for a little while what was available already. How can we do better? So these are the research questions that we are now addressing in Oxford. And I'm happy to announce today something that we've been dealing with for some time. We're going to launch an Oxford research initiative on AI for social good, geared around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It means contributing to the big picture. Now, that's the brain power you can bring. Of course, there's much more. Skills, economic power, political will, and so on. Social support. but everybody has to push a little bit. Now, what we want to address is what explains the gaps. Why some projects are successful or not, and can we address those gaps? The role of the stakeholders. Is it because money was there, because an intelligent politician pushed, because an NGO did all the legwork, because a donor provided the lab, etc.? We don't know. And what lessons can we learn so that we can do better, more? We can incentivize, we can remove obstacles. That's the project for the next 2 years. There are some SDGs that are addressed by fewer than 5 projects in our sample. They're staggering. Why? No poverty, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and cleaner energy, peace, justice, strong institutions. There's nothing, let me remark this, nothing in those goals that is intrinsically not AI treatable. Water? Really? So something is not quite working. It's coordination, it's support, it's pushing all together. That's why we need a much global engagement. So what we want to do is a follow-up analysis in which we will have academia, civil society, governments and intergovernmental organizations, the private sectors, of course, and technology on our side, working together. In that context, we want to check what does not work and what works. We want to extract the right lessons. And once we got them, provide all this open access, open source to the wider community to see, you want to make a difference? That's how it's done. And those are the good lessons we have learned. In all this is the project that we're going to develop in the following 2 years. And as all good projects has a beginning and an end, the bad projects are never ending. We want to have something that enables. So what we want to do, monitor, support those projects, build a database, put them together. Identify, explain the gaps that I told you about before. We want to involve the key stakeholders. We already have several companies already lining up to support the project that we have in Oxford. That's reassuring. That means that the goodwill is out there. And we want to anticipate whatever mistakes might be in the horizon. Mitigate, anticipate. The pinch of salt at the beginning makes a big difference in the pasta. Don't add it at the end. Then we will deliver an improved understanding of the value of AI for social good. So we will know a little bit better what the heck are we talking about when all this blah, blah, blah is around. An open repository of all these projects. So at some point you have such a size that if you're not there, you say, why have us not invited to the party? I need to be there. Here's the form. Fill it. You're a member of the group. And a benchmark or assessment framework so that we know exactly when these projects deserve the name of socially good, or sometimes we're not quite yet, not there. Finally, a pathway to high impact so that we can advise governments and companies if they need advice, if they want advice on how to proceed in terms of their corporate responsibility. This is the plan, and these are the good news. Mind that we're not doing too well. When people are asked, and I heard people being asked today as well, what is your major problem? What doesn't make you sleep at night? I hope that everybody will agree that ultimately, if you get out of the bubble, is that we're not going to have a planet in a short while. Forget about the jobs, forget about society, forget even about fundamentalism. Anything else doesn't look as serious as the environmental crisis, because without a planet, there is no solution for anything else. So this AI as a force for good will be the green and the blue coming together. It is something that we need to engineer ASAP. We need all the help we can get. We need the AI to be on our side. That's so obvious. Thank you.